Great. Well, thank you all for joining us today. This is one of the webinar series in ACMHAI's professional development webinars that we provide to our members, board members, and their, oh, hold on just one sec, audio, video. Okay, welcome, Ryan. So I want to introduce our speaker today, Regina Crider, and she's presenting on peer parent support, role, and pearls. Regina is the founder of Youth and Family Alliance and has served as the executive director for 8 years. Recently, Regina took a position at Chapin Hall as a senior policy analyst for community and parent leadership. Before acquiring her current role, she worked as an advocate for youth and families for 15 years across various child-serving systems in Illinois. Learning to navigate the education and mental health systems for her daughter has made Regina passionate about equipping and empowering parents to do the same for their children. She believes that families can solve their problems when given the appropriate support to do so. Regina is a statewide trainer and national speaker for children's mental health. She's an elected official and serves as a trustee in the village of Rantoul, Illinois, where she lives. In 2022, she was appointed to the Illinois Children's Mental Health Partnership by Governor Pritzker as the interim board chair, and she also chairs the NB subcommittee for HFS Medicaid Advisory Committee. Currently, she serves as vice president for the family-run Executive Directors Leadership Association and as a director of the Illinois Children's Healthcare Foundation Board, where she chairs the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. Most recently, she has joined the Illinois Collaborative of Youth, ACMHAI, and Eastern Illinois Food Bank Board of Directors. Wonderful background, Regina. We are so thankful that she's able to join us here today. Again, this video is being recorded so you can share it with your boards. We'll have it on our YouTube page. And then we will have time at the end of her presentation, or if you want to do it differently, Regina, that's up to you. But there will be time for question and answer. Feel free to raise your hand or use the chat box. So with that, I'd just like to turn it over to Regina. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jody, and thank you for the invitation to come out and share with you about something that I'm very passionate about, and that's peer parent support, or also known as peer support. So today I want to just, if people have questions as we go along, it's a small enough group, I'm okay with that. If they want to drop a question in the chat or something like that, that should be fine. If you could just field that for me, I would be okay with that, Jody. Okay. All right, so what I plan to cover today is learn what is a family-run organization. I'm going to cover identifying roles of family-run organizations at the child and family level, and then I'm going to talk about peer parent support, the role of the peer parent supporter. So I want to first start off by talking about a family-run organization. So a family-run organization for children's mental health is one whose purpose is to serve families that have children and youth with serious behavioral, emotional, and mental health challenges. It is an organization that's governed by family members or family members who have lived experience of children and adolescents with mental health challenges. The criteria for being a family-run organization is that the organization must be governed by a board of directors. The majority of the members are family members, meaning that they are the parents or family members of youth who have mental health challenges. Families with lived experience must be 51%. And they must contain and uphold SOC values and the guiding principles of family-driven care. And I said all that to say is that my organization, the Alliance, is a family-run organization. We have it where 75% of our board identify as people with lived experience, parents of lived experience. And my organization was established in 2014. It was birthed out of a Systems of Care grant that was awarded to Champaign County after 6 years of providing services and supports. Family members who have been receiving services through this particular grant decided that they wanted to have a family-run organization to continue on that work. So we originally started our work specifically in Champaign County, but as time went on and we began to apply for various grants, a lot of our work expanded throughout the state of Illinois. So the vision for our organization is families and children throughout the state of Illinois experience emotional, behavior, and or mental health challenges readily obtain the needed supports and services that they need for optimal mental health recovery. That is our goal, is to work with those families. So in order to be a family-run organization, you have to embrace the systems of care values and principles. And so the systems of care values and principles are at the very core and the center of our work, and it guides what we do and how we deliver services to families. Systems of care, first and foremost, are a set of values and principles that provides an organizing framework for systems reform in partnership with families and youth. And the operative word means that I like to focus on is the word partnership. It's families coming to the table, having a voice. So the systems of care values and principles consist of community-based services and supports that are organized to meet the unique challenges of children and youth with serious behavioral health needs and their families. In systems of care, families and youth work in partnership with public and private organizations. A system of care helps children, youth, and families function better at home, in school, in the community, and throughout life. Services and supports must be effective, and they build on the strengths of individuals and addresses each person's cultural and linguistic needs. These services and supports are family-driven, youth-guided, linguistically, and culturally competent. So what is family-driven care? What does family-driven care look like in practice? And the reason why this is important is because it goes back to the saying, nothing about us without us, that families are the ones who are driving the decisions about how services are being designed for them and their families at the policy and management levels, as well as having voice at the service level. So family-driven care focuses on the needs of families while affording them opportunities to get more integrally involved at the policy level if they choose to do so. So families are choosing culturally and linguistically competent support services and the providers. They are setting goals, they're designing, implementing, and evaluating programs. They're also monitoring outcomes and partnering in the funding decisions. In effective systems of care, families are partners at the policy level, policy-making level, management and service levels of the system with other key stakeholders. And it's really important to know that effective systems do not simply invite families to be part of the process. It is the critical first step of family involvement. So the way that you can see systems of care and family involvement in systems of care is this is just a little infographic that shows you what that could potentially look like when you have family involvement. So at the service level, families are involved and they're a part of their members of their team, their own child's team. They can be care managers, they can be peer supporters, and they can be advocates, just to name a few. At the management level, they can be actively involved in quality improvement processes, recruitment and selection of personnel. And at the policy level, they can be the majority vote on a governance board, like my organization, or part of a team that writes, reviews, RFPs, and contracts. But I think the most significant level that families can be involved is when you have family members working within organizations and agencies at every level with lived experience. So that's what leads us to peer support. Peer support was birthed out of all of these various movements that you see here on the screen. You have the systems of care movement, the family involvement movement, and the wraparound movement. In the systems of care movement, of course, like we said, it was a new way to organize services and support and new ways to manage systems. Peer support is an integral part of the systems of care values and principles, because if family members are able to connect with people who get them, and family members can connect with folks who are helping to guide their services, we have found that family members do better and stay in services longer. In the family movement, new roles and family members were involved in the systems operations, and the parents were involved in the service provision level. And at the wraparound movement level, this was a new way for families to plan and organize services and supports. And it was also an ability to connect support interventions with community resources and system services. So the stages of parental involvement typically start with the parent being involved in their child's own care. Then they may gradually move into involvement in their neighborhood and community. That's when you're starting to see those systems of care values and principles beginning to rise to the top. And then you see them at that system involvement level where they're sitting at the policy level, the management level, and the service level. So that's when you know you have an effective systems of care, is when you see family members at each one of those levels. So there are some similarities, however, between peer support, parent involvement, and parent leadership. So peer parent support, also known as peer support, across the board with each of these, each person must have lived experience, meaning, and let me define what lived experience means. Lived experience means that you are a parent or the caregiver of a child that you have navigated systems for. You could be a foster parent or adoptive parent, but you must have the lived experience of actually raising that child and navigating those systems, specifically mental health systems. So a peer supporter is a person who provides intentional peer support with unrelenting focus on the parent or the primary caregiver of the child. They also is based on a strategic self-disclosure related to the parent's own personal experience. They encourage and support parents to achieve their own identified outcomes and communicate active acceptance at all interactions. Parent involvement also must have lived experience, and parents have to have access to the decision-making process and are actively participating in the practice and or program level. Parents and family members have voice and is listened to and heard and are meaningful decision makers in their own child and family teams. That's when you have parents who are actively involved. And then when you have parents as leaders, these parents are leveraging their personal life experiences, their own expertise and their own stories, making examples that induces a group to take action in accordance with the leader's purpose. This can occur at practice, program, state, national, and policy level, and is part of a system transformation effort. So parents can see themselves in any one of these three categories. You could be a peer supporter, you can parent that's involved, or you can move into parent leadership. To continue on with that, a peer supporter also partners with rather than deliver services to. They are the parents and the peer supporter are equals. We focus on suspending biases and we hold a relational stance and respect for that family. And then we also work at linking them with other collaborative partners. And we'll talk way more about peer support in a second. When parents are involved and there's parent involvement, parents and family members have ownership of their own plans. That means that they have buy-in in their plans. And so those plans can be a treatment plan at the child and family team level, a wraparound plan, whatever the case may be. That's where they have ownership in it. They have buy-in to that plan. The parents and family members participate in the program decisions, and then parents and family members are beginning to emerge as leaders. When you are a parent leader, on the other hand, you're connected to the collective voice of other parents. And parents and family members as leaders participate in meetings, committees and boards where decisions are made that influence mental health services at the local and state level. So just to kind of drill down a little bit more on what peer support services are and what it is. The vast majority of families that are raising children with mental health needs are healthy families, but they're just experiencing a very stressful time. good parenting skills don't usually work when a child has mental health needs. And I am a testament to that. I have two children. I have a son and a daughter. And the things that I did with my son, who doesn't have the degree of mental health issues that my daughter has, never really worked on her. And so we were always trying to figure out what was the next thing that we needed to do. So most mental health problems present as behavioral problems, but they are not responsive to the disciplinary strategies that work with typically developing children. So this is where peer support can come in to provide some support to parents who are trying to navigate this whole system of what's going on. You're trying to navigate what's happening with your family, as well as navigate the various systems that your child needs to be involved in to get the support that they need. Before we go any further, I think it's important to pause and hear for a second and talk a little bit about the difference between peer support and family support. So family support is everyone's business, whether you're a clinician, parents, teachers, psychiatrists, or any other type of helper, right? Peer support, however, is the work of parents with lived experience who are prepared to use their personal experience within their own family in helping other parents. Everyone should be supportive of families, but only those with lived experience who are prepared to use their lived experience as part of their job or career path can deliver peer parent support. And that's really important to remember. A lot of times I have found in working with various organizations that people kind of fudge on the definition of what a peer supporter can be. A peer supporter must be a parent with lived experience of raising a child with mental health challenges. So what is peer support? Peer parent support, also commonly known as peer support, and that's what I usually call it because it's kind of a tongue twister to say peer parent support. Peer support offers hope, guidance, advocacy, camaraderie for parents and caregivers of children and youth receiving services from mental health, substance use, and other related service systems. What is the role of the peer supporter? Simply stated, a peer support person brings their lived experience to the table. I like to give the disclaimer of what we do not do and what we don't do. We are not counselors for parents. And I do identify as a parent with lived experience. I do identify as a peer supporter. So one of the things that we don't do is that we don't provide counseling to parents. We are there to support parents and help them navigate the various systems that their child may be currently involved in or will be involved in. We are there to help parents learn how to advocate for themselves, not do things for them, but to help them in the process of learning how to navigate that system or systems. And one of my favorite ones I like to say is that we are not parent correctors. And I think that that's critical to state and to say. We are not there to convince parents to do what providers or systems want them to do, but to help the providers and systems to understand where the parent is coming from and to also help parents understand where the providers and systems are the things that they're from the provider and system side as well. So it's bringing our lived experience to the table, not there to correct parents and tell them what to do, but to partner with them as well as to be able to partner with systems. Some other unique aspects of peer support. Peer support, the reason why I love this service so much is because peer support really focuses on the parent as a person rather than parent as a role. We're spending time developing a personal relationship with the parent, connecting with the parent based upon our experiences with navigating systems and raising a child with mental health challenges. We focus on the parent's experience rather than their child's story, because as a parent myself working raising a child with mental health challenges, I oftentimes would connect everything to my child's story and not my own story. I have my own story that was developing as I am working with trying to get the help that I needed for my daughter. But a peer supporter, a very well-trained peer supporter, can help the parent connect to their own experiences rather than just focusing on the experience of their child. Communication we are able to communicate with the peers, with the parents, even if we don't agree with everything that the parent wants to do. Our job is to be there to support the parent. And then we focus on parents understanding their experience versus getting parents to behave a certain way. And that's a critical part as well. Parents really need to feel accepted for the things that they are going through and the things that they're dealing with. So the basic foundation of peer support is grounded in lived experience. And I've talked a little bit about that. It's a permanent relationship with the child and seeking and sought services and experiencing navigating complex behavioral systems. Once again, it's not, I helped my grandmother raise my little cousin, I helped take her to doctor's appointments. That's not lived experience. Lived experience is the day in, day out, going to doctor's appointments. It's the behaviors, it's the school calls, it's all of that. Another basic foundation of peer support is communicates active acceptance. So as a peer supporter, we have the ability to recognize and manage our own biases, because there are times that we can walk into a situation with a parent and have our own biases flare up. And that's the last thing that a parent needs, is for us to be biased about their situation. We're committed to working on starting from a place of welcome for all parents. We're not there to change parents. We're there to support parents and for them to feel welcomed and not judged. It's also based on strategic self-disclosure. So that means I'm willing to share my parts of my story strategically with the parent in order to help them through whatever situation that they're doing. And then once again, it's being partnered with rather than delivered to. It's our ability to stay in a peer-based relationship and support for support's sake rather than service sake. So we're there to support the parent regardless of whatever that they're dealing with and whatever they're going through. So some of the common services that we offer through peer support is information and referral. We can provide support groups. We can provide systems navigation, crisis support, parent training and education, and then also social activities. And we put social activities because it's really important for parents to be able to have opportunities to connect with other families that are going through similar situations as theirs. Because when you're dealing with a child who has mental health challenges, it can become very isolating and it can be very lonely. So to have opportunities to do social activities with other families is a really critical component of some of the services that we offer through peer support. When we're doing information and referral, we are collecting information and identifying services. That's why a peer supporter needs to be very well versed in the services and supports that are in their community and what's available to families, so that we can connect our parents that we're working with those services. At our organization, we've had a variety of support groups. One that we did that was very successful was Women Supporting Women. It was an opportunity for mothers to come together and share their various experiences and talk about the things that they were dealing with. But what ended up happening coming out of that was that oftentimes they started supporting one another informally outside of the group. And so it was really a great collaboration for them to get together collectively, but then individually they could support one another outside of the group. Once again, I always say families like ours don't oftentimes get to be involved in or participate in a variety of activities. So when we get the opportunity to be able to connect with other people, it helps to reduce that isolation and give families an opportunity to get to expand their support circle, because one of the things is that you definitely cannot do this alone or by yourself. Parent training and education. We have opportunities where we connect families with whatever training and education opportunities that are available in the community that we're aware of, but then we also provide training and education based on topics that parents are interested in. And we would host those trainings and educations typically during support groups, or maybe even providing some information during social activities. Peer supporters are also trained for crisis support. After 5 o'clock, agencies are closed. Over the weekends, agencies are closed. Maybe the situation that's happening in the family hasn't rose to the occasion of calling SAS, but that the parent just needs someone to talk to. So those after hours times, peer supporters are available after regular traditional business hours, as well as on the weekends, to be able to support parents if there's a crisis that happens. And then, of course, providing systems navigation of participating in helping them to understand a certain system, whether it's education, mental health, juvenile justice, because we do have peers who have children that are involved in the juvenile justice system. And in my case, a system that came up that I wasn't familiar with was the developmental disability system. So my daughter, and I have the liberty to share her story, so I do like to give that as a disclaimer. My daughter not only has mental health challenges, she's also on the DD side. And so that was a system that I wasn't aware of and had any knowledge of. And so it was a system that I had to learn how to navigate. And I had peers within my organization that supported me to help navigate and identify the various opportunities and different services that were needed to address her autism. So the way that we provide peer support at my organization is that we focus on 6 meta skills. And so the peer supporter is trained in this framework, and it's called PEARLS. And this framework focuses on establishing a peer-based relationship. As you can see, the 6 meta skills consist of peer, encourage, accept, respect, link, and suspend. So with the peer, we established a peer-based relationship. That means that we hold ourselves accountable and responsible for developing the relationship and making the connection with the parent. The reason why this is different is oftentimes in services, parents are connected or contacted about a service. If the parent doesn't seem interested, an organization may call once or twice again, but then no additional follow-up. With our organization, what we do is focus on establishing a peer-based relationship. We understand that there may be times when parents are going through a crisis and they're not ready to be involved in a new service or another service. So we'll continue to reach out to that family. What we have, and we'll share information with them. We might send them a flyer. We might share with them about a training that's coming up. We might invite them to one of the social groups or a social activity. It's that constant reaching out, not over bombarding them, not pestering them, but just providing support and just checking in to see how they're doing. What we have found is that when you make a commitment to establishing a peer-based relationship and you don't place the responsibility on the family or the peer to establish the relationship, that family, when they are ready, will reach out to you to engage in services. And we call that unconditional care. So we focus on developing that peer-based relationship. The other thing we focus on is encouraging the parents to grow as peers rather than experts. We want them to grow in their role and they don't have to be an expert in everything. They just need to be knowledgeable, but they need to know for their family. So we're constantly encouraging them to continue to grow individually. We focus on active acceptance, and we are able to communicate that active acceptance, meaning I may not always agree with the decision that you make about your child as your peer, but I can actively accept that this is what you feel is best for your family. So there's no judgment there. We hold the families in high esteem. We respect them. Positively hold the parents that we are supporting with respect. A way that I'd like to talk about holding parents in respect or high esteem is that it's important for us to manage even how we talk about family members when they're not around. How are you discussing families when they're not present? I think that tells a lot about how much a person or organization respects families that they're serving. So if you refer to a child as being crazy, or that, this family is hopeless, there's nothing you can do with them, that's not holding the family in respect or high esteem. And so we really work with the staff on ensuring that there's that degree, true, authentic respect for the family and where they are on their journey. And I'm going to talk about the journey here in a second. So then we do some other basic training around linkage and engagement, meaning we make sure that our peer supporters are equipped with the amount of information that they know that they need to be able to support their peers, and being able to successfully link them to services and supports that are going to be helpful to those families. And so I always tell parents that our peer supporters that not having an answer is not an option. Our responsibility is to try to connect parents to the services that they need, and also to help them work on fostering a good relationship with the service providers that the families are working with. And then another area that we focus on in our peer support training is suspending biases, interrupting blame. And so in order to be an effective peer supporter, you have to be able to know how to suspend your biases, put them on the shelf. We do significant training around this because a lot of times I don't think we realize the biases that we carry, and how they can impact how we serve people. And that's an important, critical part of our work, is to ensure that we are very conscious and aware of our own biases and how we suspend that. And we do a lot of this, talking through this, when we are coaching our peer supporters in supervision, as we do case reviews based upon how they are sharing about the work that they're doing with their peer supporters. So the way that we assess if the peer supporter is applying these 6 meta skills is that we observe them in the field. We observe them in their interactions with parents. Do all 6 of these meta skills show up in their interactions with parents? We also observe what they are presenting to us verbally in a coaching, but then we also look at their case notes to see if these meta skills are showing up in their written correspondence about their family. So when we use these 6 meta core skills, we are expecting them to show up in every interaction with the family, the peer supporter that they are supporting. So how does one end up on the road or the trajectory of being a peer supporter? This was an infographic that was designed by a lady by the name of Patricia Miles. And Patricia had done a research project with a variety of parents. I think she interviewed like 300 parents, and she found these common themes that came up. And these 5 common themes, she determined that at some point, parents who are navigating these systems for their children end up on this journey in one of these 5 areas, at least 4 of the 5 areas. So the first one is being defined by the situation. Becoming defined by the situation is that you realize that your child has some challenges going on, and you need to do something to help that child. So it's just becoming aware, right? Then the second part of this journey is recognize that you're a part of a system. So for me, where it became obvious to me that I was a part of a system was when I needed to get my daughter a 504 plan. So I was hesitant at first because I didn't want her to be labeled. I didn't want her to be treated differently. I didn't want her to feel like she was different from the other kids. And this is specific to the education system. We can manage and kind of keep the mental health piece under wraps because that was a lot of the work we did outside of home. But once you move into making it more public in the education system, you have to start dealing with your feelings around that. So I began to recognize that I was a part of a system when I decided that I needed to get her a 504 plan. But then the next phase is that you go into this growing realization that you have to activate for your family. And what that means is that you get to this point where you realize, you know what, the system can't save my child. I have to get activated to do something to support my child as well. And so for me, I recognized I had this growing realization that I had to do something to act, even though I went and got her a 504 plan. And even though I was taking her to counseling, I was trying to do everything that I could to support her. It wasn't until she was 10 years old when I got a call from the school, and when they called, I could tell that something was wrong. At the time, I think she was in the 4th grade, getting ready to go to the 5th grade. It was the end of her 4th grade year, and the social worker called and told me that my daughter had tried to hang herself at school in the school bathroom. And so it was then that I was like, oh, all of the things that I was doing before, they were helpful, but I need more. So I got activated. I had this culminating moment that happened that made me really have to dig down even deeper. Most parents on the journey stop around at this point because it's either you're going to keep fighting for your kid or you're just going to keep going through the motions of dealing with the system. The next part of the journey is understanding the meaning behind your experience. And so I remember one day I was talking to my daughter and she said to me, "Mom, why did God make me this way?" And it really broke my heart because I wanted to be able to fix things for her. But what this part of the journey did for me was that I got to a place where I understood that I could use my story to help someone else. And those few little words that she formed into a question for me made me begin to explore what was the meaning behind this for me. How could I utilize this in my life? And then the next phase of the journey, which most people may or may not get here, is making a commitment to help others. And that's typically where you begin your peer support work, is that if you've been able to make some understanding behind your experience and that you're willing to share that with someone else, that's where you can move into parent leadership roles, peer support role. The parent involvement stage can happen around the understanding and making meaning behind your experience. Now, the thing is that parents can move along this continuum at any level. You never fully arrive per se. So although I started moving into the peer support work and doing peer support work, I was still having times when I still needed to go back and make meaning and understanding of what's happening with my story, and so that I could effectively share my story with other people to help encourage them with peer support. So when and where does peer support happen? Peer support occurs in a variety of settings, no matter what system that a parent is linked to. Peer support is different than other services because it can be used it can be used at any time. It can be used for a short period of time. It can be used intermittently, episodic, or it can be a continuous approach. It doesn't have to be anything prescribed. Basically, receiving the peer support service should be determined by the parent how long they want to be engaged or how they want to interact with the peer supporter. If you are adhering to the basic systems of care values and principles of being family driven. Peer support doesn't have to be tied to a specific location or a particular program or service type. all of our services are offered in the community, typically in the parent's home. We do face-to-face meetings. Once again, we do support groups, and we even can provide, the pandemic put us to the place of doing video conferencing and more phone and text support for parents during that time of the pandemic. So that's what I have to share with you today about peer support. And if you have any questions, or if you just want to chat, we can do that as well.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thanks for sharing all of that, Regina. It was very informative for me, especially. I appreciate the personal aspect of it too. So thank you for sharing that. Since we're small, if you want to raise your hand or ask a question or put something in the chat box, feel free to do so. And for those that joined us a little bit late, we will have the slides available, as well as the recording available for members, for those that weren't able to join us for the full webinar. Lynn, did you have a question?
I always love listening to Regina Crider. I'm sorry I didn't log in right on time, but thank you so much for doing this. I also, that I always want your organization to grow.
I appreciate it.
I mean, it's so important. And then we have, I know that, my question was going to be about providing this kind of support to parents of adult children. Like, you're there now, but this was really critically needed for youth in this area. And I think that it grew out of appropriate attention to that. That has not changed. Maybe is even worse in this community and maybe even across the country. But I think parents of adult children have slightly different crisis, and maybe the resources that they have easily in front of them are NAMI, and I don't know if you would ever be interested in growing in that direction.
To be honest with you, Lynn, so Lynn and I know each other. We live in the same county. So absolutely. And the reason being is because what I learned, and anyone, Lynn, you have watched my daughter grow up over the years, and she's 23 now. When she graduated, it didn't hit me until she was 6 months away from graduating. And I realized, what do we do next? And because I was just focusing on trying to get her through high school, and there was no transition, there was no support to make the transition from child serving systems to the adult serving system, and really helping her. And so we come up with a whole other plethora of issues that happen when they move from child serving to adult, that transitional age, specifically around employment, around medical, around housing. These are whole other issues of figuring that out and how to support parents. And so it was a new field for me. And so we went through and identified some services that kind of work for her, but a lot of it has just been a lot of trial and error. And so once again, I'm a firm believer, if I'm going through it and I'm dealing with it, I know that there are other parents that are dealing with it as well. So yes, it's absolutely something that's of interest to us, and it's just definitely something that's needed.
And I know from experience that we can't multiply Regina Crider. I know that, but to promulgate this work, I mean, I actually professionally worked in that transition age, so I'm really aware of what a poor job we do of preparing families for what comes next. But even 23 is still not an easy age, and the economy here, I don't know everybody else's community, but this economy is especially difficult for young workers because they're competing with college students.
Yep.
And also they're also competing with people who came here as migrant workers and are now permanent residents. And so in that sort of entry-level service industry, it's hard to find a first job. And so that adds a lot of stress for children who have disabilities or mental health support needs. Even though we've got lots of agencies here who can provide the supports, without job opportunities, the support is just nice talk. So But
It
I
is.
think like also like 23, my daughter's 22, and I'm like, wow, we're getting into a whole new thing of like, they don't listen to me at all. Like, so this is the crisis that I'm familiar with from older parents of older children with mental health disabilities, like watching their children just crash and burn
Yep.
before they hear a single word the parents have said. And I think that's sort of where like NAMI does a great job with family support. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to hog all the oxygen, but I love this work so much. And
Yes.
you have been such a consistent and inspiring leader in this work. You know, I've tried to multiply you and found it's not possible.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it.
So I appreciate your time and sharing of your knowledge too. Um, when you have the peer supporters, are they, do they come to you? Do you recruit? And then are they paid? Or are they volunteering? Like,
Yes. So
how does that work?
So because I adhere to systems of care values and principles, absolutely they are paid. This is not a
Mhm.
volunteer situation. It's important that we compensate parents for their lived experience and their time. And it doesn't matter if they're coming to a support group or a meeting or whatever, they need to be compensated. So in the framework of our peer support, we are actually receive funding from the Champaign County Mental Health Board for this specific service, okay? Where we have recruited our peer supporters from have actually been people that we've supported, because you will have, if you will have those parents who will rise to the top, as you can see that I had on that trajectory, on that continuum of the parent journey, is that you're going to be looking for those parents who are ready to tell their story. Now, I'm not going to say that it's an easy transition, because it's a lot of work that has to go into working with parents who are moving from a being served to providing a service. So you're going to spend more time in training. You got to take in consideration that they need a certain type of coaching and supervision model that will support them, because a lot of times they are still at home supporting their own children or have children that they still need to support. So you have to have an organization, right, that can have some flexibility to work around those things with those families. But if done effectively and done well, absolutely, this can be done. But yes, they are paid. Yes, they are well trained, and we get our funding through our local 708 board.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I mean, I teach mental health first aid. And in mental health first aid, we talk about, you know, peer support, certified peer counselors, things like that. And you know, most of the time it's really positive, the feedback, but every once in a while, you know, we get feedback that oh, you don't want to do that, because it's parents who have their issues and they just want to press their issues. But it sounds like that you're doing a lot of the not only training but supervision, because I mean, you talked about reading their case notes and things like that. So I mean, when somebody comes up with a negative on that option, you know, I always say, you're not getting peer support in a vacuum. You know, you're getting that as part of other services.
Right.
And so it hopefully they're getting good supervision, and that if you have a bad experience, you would be able to report that.
Absolutely. And that's the critical piece, is that I take peer support, and I look at peer support as a career and a profession. And it's one that requires good supervision and good coaching. If you don't have an organization that has the structure for someone, and you have to be prepared to know how to support and provide support and supervision for a peer supporter. If you don't have buy-in to the fact that peer support can be helpful, then you're not going to be very effective at supervising and coaching that person. But if you have a good supervision and coaching model in place, they can be very effective in their work and no less professional than anyone else that's sitting
Right.
around the table.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. And you know, the other thing is like the rest of the system has like a little bit of work to do on listen to them.
Mhm.
We really are
Absolutely.
experts,
Mhm.
and our whole, like all of our systems can get better if we actually listen to them. So
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Any other questions or comments? Well, this was fantastic, Regina. Honestly, I really appreciate it. Well done. And if you don't mind, if you could send us your slides for prime time for sharing it with our members, we'd very much appreciate it.
Absolutely, not a problem. Thank you for inviting me. It's good seeing you again, Lynn.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us today.
Have a good
Take
one.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
take care, y'all.
Bye.